What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the Whiskey Shed. My name is John McGrath, an Irishman in his workshop, drinking whiskey and sharing that journey with you guys. Now, this one we are heading up north to Donegal for the legendary Silke Irish whiskey. So without further ado, let's jump in and take a look. Okay, so a little bit about the whiskey and the distillery before we jump in and nose and taste it. Now, this is the legendary Silke Irish whiskey, like I've said, and this comes from the Slibh Liag Distillery, which was set up in Ardara in Donegal. Now, the distillery itself is still under construction, I believe. It's meant to go into production this year, 2021, and produce their own distillate. So they're sourcing their distillate and bottling it themselves, but they're not actually producing their own distillate yet. So that's yet to come. So it was started by a man by the name of James Doherty there in Donegal, and it's the first distillery to go into production in Donegal in 175 years. Although, from what I believe, his grandfather was actually illegally producing whiskey up in the hills, a kind of smoky blend whiskey up there in Donegal under the radar of the authorities. So technically some whiskey was being produced in Donegal, although not very legally. But this is legal, you will be happy to know. So, like I said, it's relatively new, founded in 2017, and the whole idea, I suppose, the whole ethos of what they're trying to do up there is try and produce something unique, something different, trying to shake things up a bit and get back to some roots with peated whiskey. So all whiskey in Ireland traditionally would have been peated because the barley would have been dried with peat back in the day. But Irish whiskey kind of moved away from the whole peated thing. I think they want to move back towards producing some peated whiskies. This one is lightly peated. Now, the name Silke comes from a mythical creature from Irish folklore. It's also Scottish and Icelandic folklore. So Silke, or the Silke people, or the Silke folk, or the seal folk in English, they were shapeshifters, so they would come out of the sea, shed their seal skin, and apparently be beautiful women would walk up the beach. It doesn't happen too often anymore, I don't know why, but it's a pity, but that's apparently what they were, and that's where the name comes from on the bottle. So you can see it has a kind of a mermaid on the side of it, so a mythical creature from Irish mythology. So that's a little bit about the whiskey and the distillery. There's not much to it, so let's get in and nose and taste it. Okay, so let's get some in the glass. Now, there's some heavy raindrops falling on a tin roof, so that's what that noise is. So let's see if we have a nice cork pop. Yep, not too bad. Let's get some of this in the glass. Okay, let's get nosing and tasting this whiskey. Now, a little bit about the whiskey itself. Like I said, it's a blended whiskey, so it's a mix of double distilled and triple distilled malt whiskey. There's also some grain whiskey in it and some lightly peated stuff in here too, just for a little bit of a hint. Now, I believe what they want to produce from their distill up there is a single malt and a single pot still. So that's what we have to look forward to from the Slibh Liag Distillery, and both of them are going to be peated. So it's going to be fascinating to see what a peated single pot still Irish whiskey is like, because there's nobody doing that in this country. So let's see, it's 46% ABV, it's a non-chill filtered, so on the nose. So on the nose, I definitely get apples, so kind of crisp apples up front. I also get some iodine, almost kind of seaweedy vibe going to it. There's a little bit of a honey, kind of biscuity sweetness in there. But yeah, I'd say the two standout notes for me is definitely a kind of a crisp apple note with some iodine and some seaweed. I can definitely get a hint of the sea. Now, I don't know, they're sourcing this distillate, so I'm not sure they're aging it themselves. They're just bottling it themselves. So where it's been aged and matured, I don't know. But yeah, I can definitely get a slight iodine hint in this. A slight medicinal note. I'm not getting too much of the smoke of the peat, maybe just in the background. So yeah, big apples, I'd say crisp apples, honeyed sweetness, iodine, maybe a medicinal note, and a slight little hint of smoke. Oh no, not too bad on the nose. When I first opened the bottle, I didn't like it, but it has definitely improved as I've gone down the bottle. So on the palate. So the palate is even nicer than the nose. There's a lot more flavour going on here, and it's lovely and silky and smooth. So it actually lives up to the name Silke. It has a lovely silky smooth texture to it. It has a lovely honey sweetness up front. Then that kind of iodine is kind of there. Get the apples, and then there's a smoky finish on this. You can definitely get the peat It's only very mild, it's a little hint, but it's a really nice contrast between the sweet and the smoke. So finishing nicely with some smoke on the back of the palate. And it's kind of lingering there. And the more I'm tasting this, the more it's growing on me and the more I like it. It's definitely different. It's not like your traditional, I suppose, blended whiskey that you would get here in Ireland. It's a little bit different, and that's great to see, because anything that's unique and different, the more variety we have, the better for us who like drinking whiskey. So yeah, the palate, honey sweetened up front. You get some of that iodine, that medicinal quality in the middle, and then finishing with some smokiness. And those apples are also in the mix too. So not too bad, very, very nice. Let's leave it for about 10 minutes, let it open up and see what we can pull out of it. Okay, so having let it sit for 10 minutes, let's see if it opened up and what else we can get from this. So, on the nose. Yeah, definitely that iodine is more to the forefront. It's that kind of seaweedy kind of smell. I suppose it's perfect for this style of whiskey because it is, like I say, the Silke, or the Irish legend, the Silke, those mythical creatures from the sea. So it has a nautical theme to it, and it definitely has a hint of the sea. Now, the last couple of whiskies I've had have all had that nice kind of sea kind of note to them. This, the Dingle single malt, and obviously the Curragh, which was a seaweed cask. So this has a hint of it as well. So yeah, that iodine is kind of more to the forefront now. The apples are still there. It's definitely still that honey sweetness, that kind of biscuity honey sweetness is there as well. But yeah, the nose hasn't changed too much. So on the palate. Yeah, the palate, again, the more I taste this, the nicer it's getting on the palate. Up front this time, it's definitely that honey biscuity sweetness. It's standing out a bit more. A little iodine is a little bit more muted, so that kind of seaweediness, but you can still get it. And then it finishes with a little hint of smoke, not too much. Now, I'm not a big peat expert. I haven't tasted too many peated whiskies, but this is very mild. Even, and like I said, I'm not a big peat drinker, so I don't know what a powerful peated whiskey is like as opposed to a mild peated whiskey, but there's just a hint of smoke here, so this is only just a hint. So if you're thinking this is going to be a peated whiskey, it's not, it's just a hint, but it's a lovely hint in the mix, I think. So, yeah, biscuity honey sweetness up front, that iodine in the middle palate. The apples are actually still there, and finishing with that smoke. So a little like before, but the sweetness is a little bit more to the forefront now, I would say. Now, retails in and around 40 to 50 euros, I believe. I picked this one up for in and around 40 euros. So I was interested to see what those guys are doing up there, and they definitely have some lovely, interesting flavours. And like I say, it's silky smooth on the palate, the texture-wise. Very nice flavours, I have to say. All very well balanced and well integrated. There's nothing sticking out crazily out of it, but yeah, very nice. Now, they also do a dark Silke, which I'm very interested to try because that's more heavily peated, so I think I'll grab myself a bottle of that and do a review on it as well. So yeah, there we go, the legendary Silke Irish whiskey. Right guys, so there we go. That has been my opinion on the legendary Silke Irish whiskey for what it's worth. And I have to say, I really like this one. It's a little bit different, and different can sometimes be really good. So it's nice to see that they're getting their flavour profiles right from their own blend. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what their distillate is like when they produce it, especially single pot still Irish whiskey that's peated. Nobody is doing that. I've never tasted that in my life, and I'm a big fan of single pot still whiskey, so I can't wait to taste a peated single pot still. That's going to be absolutely fascinating. They're getting the blend right, so hopefully they will get their distillate right as well and age it right. It's going to be a few years yet, but we will wait with bated breath. So yeah, definitely try that one out, guys. If you like the flavour profiles that I've described, definitely check this one out. It's a little bit different, and yeah, interesting things to come. Keep an eye on the Slibh Liag Distillery. So that's it, guys. I'm going to get out of here now. Hopefully you've enjoyed that whiskey review. So sláinte amach macara. I shall see you in the next one. So until then, tóga bógé, and cheers. Yeah, again, it's the sea with some smokiness and some honeyed sweetness. Quite nice.